Hey gents, today we are talking about shoes, and one of the questions I get as you guys start to research into nicer shoes, I get this one a lot, the difference between a shoe from Spain and from Portugal. And the primary comparison here is going to be between Idris, which is made in Spain, and Undandy, because they're both custom shoemakers, Idris being from Spain, Undandy out of Portugal. And it's also informed by my experience with many other shoemakers. From Spain in particular, you have Carmina, you have Spear McKay, and then from Portugal, of course, Undandy, Carlos Santos. Most of the sneakers that I reviewed, a lot of those end up coming from Portugal. And then also Oliver Wicks has some shoes out of Portugal as well. And what makes people dive in a little bit more is that they're very close in style and craftsmanship, and they're usually very close in price, whether it's $50 to $100, depending on the brand that you're looking at. You can usually find shoes from either of those countries while still being at a very similar price point. And so just giving some of my experience and thoughts around having these. Portugal has exploded in the last few years as far as footwear manufacturing has gone, especially as many of the makers from France and Italy are moving to where the labor costs are lower, where the craftsmanship is still high. For the 90s, Portugal was largely known as the China of Europe, but since they joined the Eurozone, there's been a lot of companies and factories that have shut down that were making lower end shoes and a better focus on these more high-end shoes. And you can always find variances in the craftsmanship depending on the brand, because you can't compare a Jack Irwin shoe at $250 to a Carmina shoe up in the $500 to $600 range, but that's all about what the brand's positioning really is. But when you're looking at something in a similar price point, which is where a lot of my comparisons come in, if you're comparing Undandy to Jack Irwin, what really is the difference between those two? And what it really comes down to me is the leather quality. The craftsmanship on both of them I find to be extremely similar. They're very well made, they're usually handmade in Goodyear welt or Blake stitch, but the leather is what I find to be the real differentiator between the two countries. And I see this as well with shoes out of Mexico. There's only a certain quality of leather that tends to come out of the country, even though the craftsmanship can be really great, unless the company is importing leathers from a different country and then manufacturing there, then the shoes aren't completely comparable. And Allen Edmonds is a great example of this. Allen Edmonds is very open to the fact that they use some of the finest European tanneries to then make the shoes in the US, which is why you can't compare their shoes to some other US manufacturers unless they also source from there. And I've had conversations with people who make shoes in Mexico who said they've actually looked at importing Italian leathers into Mexico, but by the time it ends up not really working out. But it's also why you see such fine, incredible leathers from regions within Italy versus what you see from Spain. That being said, the two leathers are very comparable, but I can see exactly why there's a difference in about $100 between the two, because Spanish leathers just tend to be a little bit nicer. I would love to see some examples out of Portugal of really high-end, really beautiful, rich, and deep and durable leathers, but I haven't seen those, especially at the prices that we're talking about with Undandy, which is around that $200 price point or so, which for a custom shoe is an amazing price. I just always want to address that. Like the fact that we can go to Idris or Undandy and get these handmade shoes that are custom, that isn't going to run you $500 to $600 is amazing. And with Idris, they're really focused on high quality materials. I actually built mine with a real day-night sole, which is something that you can't get from Thursday Boots. They have their like day-night looking sole, but you're getting like a true day-night sole on a Goodyear welted double monk at a great price. And so that's where these custom shoe companies are really nice. When it comes to sneakers out of Portugal and Spain, I find it very hard to see a difference between those two because a white colored leather can only get so nice. At that point, you're looking at, does it have a margam sole or not? Because margam soles are so nice. But when it comes to a sneaker like the Paul Evans sneaker I talked about in my last video, because they use an Italian calfskin leather and they use, Paul Evans always has some of the nicest leather that I've ever experienced in a shoe. I haven't gone into the $2,000 Berlutis, but it's really hard to beat those leathers at that price. That's why you see the Paul Evans sneaker being so distinct and higher priced than these others. So when you're looking at a difference between a shoe made in Spain or Portugal, you're probably going to find very similar styles, very similar silhouettes, and very similar craftsmanship. But when you're comparing two shoes at similar prices, if there's a $50 variance more for the ones made in Spain, it is likely due to the fact that they use a nicer, higher quality leather that will end up aging and lasting longer than a shoe made out of Portugal. But I would love to see some examples of shoes out of Portugal that use that much of a nicer leather that could trick me into thinking it was from Spain or even Italy. Now there are some makers, and this is where the details really matter as you're shopping for shoes, there are some makers where they will import Italian leathers into Spain or Portugal. Oliver Cabell is a good example of this, where they were importing Italian leathers for their sneakers made in Spain. That's where you'll see that they're using the quality craftsmanship at good prices in that country, but they're using the high quality raw materials from another, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. So as you do your research, I hope that is helpful to see those two and see some of the examples of the shoes that I already own. I was looking for a slipper that I could wear with my midnight blue tuxedo, and I made a tassel loafer over on Undandy, which I was pretty happy with. But then I got a Belgian loafer from Idris that I actually put a red sole on, and this like just deep black suede in here, because I had that Belgian loafer, I had that red one from Idris that I really liked. So like, yeah, this is a difference in the company, but this is also a Spanish made versus Portuguese made. And you know, if I have to choose between the two, it's gonna be this one. And so if you're looking at any of these companies, I hope my videos are helpful. I have a lot of these out there where I dive into individual companies, and I'm also trying to do more roundups where I can bring together a bunch of different brands and show you what you're getting at different price points. That's really the goal of this channel. And as always, I put links down below so you can check out the brands and make your research and shopping very easy. As always, I'll be down in the comments to answer questions. You can also reach out at @_Kavalier on Twitter and Instagram. Love to hear from you guys over there. And video ideas, always welcome as well. Until next time, gents, this is the Kavalier.